Pokemon Go.
There's a lot of information to unpack here. Because there were actually quite a few articles that I found while looking at this.
Yeah, and when you were bringing me up to speed, like I had to go back and look. So let's start with the basics. During the pandemic,
yes,
they changed some stuff. What did they change?
So they basically made it so that your actual physical location was not, the game was not contingent on where you were physically located. This made it easier for those who were on lockdown, right, and respecting the space needed for pandemic. It made it so that we could play Pokemon Go from our houses, which I do think is a very good way to make sure that you are catering towards those who are not necessarily able to leave their houses.
The people with disabilities, things like that, started jumping on Pokemon Go because now it's a much more practical game to play.
Yes, they went up to 9.1 million players and have actually dropped down to about, I think it was like 4.2 million players in the last couple of months, because what they did after making it so that you could play from your house is they made remote raid passes, which means that you could go and raid from wherever you could, right? And you would pay for these remote raid passes, and then you'd participate. You get Pokemon and stuff like that from it. And they have since then nerfed it, which means that there's a cap on how many remote raiders can actually exist. And it's actually creating a lot of issues for Pokemon Go players because
now they can't get raids off the ground.
They can't get raids going because it usually means that if you don't have enough people physically there alongside the 5 remote raid players, then you just time out on a battle pass that you've paid for.
It's not just that you time out. So, like when I've done raids in the past, the biggest issue I would run into prior to, this is pre-pandemic, before the remote raid passes, is you have to be somewhere where there's enough people, right? Because some of those monsters that pop out of the eggs in the raids are crazy powerful.
They're OP.
And so when you're, even when there's like, I remember there was a bunch of us like hanging out, when there was like 8 of us with like our top tier Pokemon, we could not beat the raid boss on a first run through when you were there.
Yep. I remember my mom being very upset about a Gyarados in particular.
You were like, what the smoke? And so, so the remote raid passes are a thing. The issue that, and Taylor and I were doing the rundowns this morning, the problem that we're seeing partially with this story is there's a lot of conflicting information. Yeah. So like the number that she said, one set of groups is saying that they've dropped 1 million in the last month.
Yes.
The other one that we saw said, no, most of those losses were in 2021 and 2022,
right?
And that the people who've been mad about the changes that they did in April, that the numbers haven't dropped since they did anything. That was the one article you sent me, where they were like, this boycott basically did nothing. You know, like, we don't know. One group came out and said that their revenues had dropped, and then Niantic immediately jumped out and was like, our quarter 3 2023 is higher than 2022, so we don't know what you're talking about.
It's extremely muddled, and it's very interesting to see the different figures and information brought out there that is either directly disputed by Niantic or disputed by other
third-party trackers. This kind of comes down to that transparency thing. Like Steam is really good about it, where they're like, look, this is how many concurrent users a game has, because they don't have a dog in the fight.
No, they're just, they are the platform that carries the games.
Right. And so, you know, it's tough. Pokemon Go, going back to the kind of the start of Pokemon Go, and I still remember the first couple of days that Pokemon Go dropped. And I remember downloading it myself and thinking, oh, this is neat. And I remember I was living in Seattle at the time, like downtown, and I went across the street to the park. And it's a big park, but, you know, and there was always people there doing stuff. I had never seen anything like I saw with Pokemon Go when it first came out. I was walking this park and I saw 12-year-olds talking to grandparents about, there's a Raichu in those bushes over there, and there's a Squirtle over there. And I had never seen a community
just like spontaneously
erupt.
Flourish.
And everybody was happy and running around and walking around and being outside in the summer and doing all this stuff. And I was like, wow, that is really neat.
Right.
And I can understand, and this is, I think, where Taylor and I are going to... I understand a little bit. I think the remote raid thingy is a little much. I think they shouldn't put that cap on it.
I don't think that they should have a cap on it. And I also do think that, like, In order to,
I think 5 is way too low.
well, yeah.
Because a lot of those raids are 20-person raids.
Yeah.
So I think 10 would be like if you're trying to do it, because again, I get what Niantic's saying and that they're like, go. In fact, there was a meme when Pokemon first came out, right? And it was, Pokemon's been trying to get people to like, you can trade with your friends, go see your friends. And then it was, okay, you don't have to be next to them, but play.
Right.
And then there was the last part of the meme, which was Pokemon GO, and it just said, go the F outside.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like,
Which I have literally witnessed my mom running out of the front door barefoot to go and catch specific Pokemon at the park. So, like, that does work.
And I'm torn between, I understand, and I think that what Niantic is trying to do to get people out into the world
Yes.
is a good thing. And doing augmented reality gaming and doing these things is a good thing. And I think what Niantic's worried about, and I don't think that they're wrong to be worried, is that if they shut it down to the point where people just aren't going outside, where you can basically play it like a Switch game, that it defeats the purpose of the game, right? But then there's the accessibility argument of people who live in far rural areas, who I have a lot of empathy for. Because if you live somewhere rural, like I've been to rural places and tried to play Pokemon Go, like you're screwed.
Yeah.
Right? Like
I mean, I was in the middle
play.
of a military base in Bavaria when it came out, and I literally, like, I caught the Bulbasaur in my kitchen and then never saw another Pokemon again until I finally, like, was able to go and get to a larger city. And it was spotty Wi-Fi at best, of course, so there was no good connections, and it was just kind of garbage to play. I didn't start playing until I was back here in the States.
And so I have empathy.
See,
I'm stuck on this one because, like,
I think that they should open it up and literally just let it be, like, if you want to play it on the Switch, fine. Go for it, right?
or if you just want to play it remotely from your house.
If you want to just play it remotely from your house, fine. Go for it. There are quite a few folks that are unable to actually leave their houses comfortably. So I don't think that, like, shutting them out of the game is going to do anything for Pokemon Go. However, they should also, like, have the option to, hey, go the F outside. Go
Do you
play
think maybe
this.
you incentivize going outside?
I mean, if you do it in the right way without also shitting on the players who are going to be playing from their houses and playing remotely, like, it needs, I think that if you give...
Do you think there's a way to balance it?
I do. I do think there is.
To incentivize people to go be out in the community.
Yes.
They do a lot of these Pokemon Go community fests where they get
Yes.
people together to share their love of Pokemon. I know they were teaching the Pokemon TCG at the Go Fest last year.
Yes, and they also had, like, specific Pokemon cards that you could only get at that event. And on top of that, like, you could also, on the flip side, incentivize some folks playing remotely as well. You could get different rewards for either side and have that be melded together. That way you have a good balance of players going between, right? And actually have a more enriched game experience.
Somebody in the YouTube chat brought up more stuff you didn't get into Ingress to add all the points. So the background of this too as well is the first game that Niantic really that was big for them was a game called Ingress, and it was an augmented reality game. And Pokemon Go is essentially just a reskinned version of Ingress. And basically in Ingress, what they were trying to get you to do was go to museums and look at sculptures. And that's why when Pokemon Go dropped, all the Pokestops were at places where
the parks and
places to go look at stuff. And that's why the stops were where they were. Was because they literally took the portals from Ingress and were like, that's now a Pokestop. This one's a gym, right? Like, the end, like, we're good here, throwing the monster hunting thing, and we're done. They didn't do conventions where you can get exclusive stuff. They don't do conventions, but what they do is Go community days, and they happen every couple of months. Like, they're pretty frequent.
Cool. Like, they have a lot over at the Seattle City Center.
There was one over that they had a huge issue with the one down in Vegas recently because they charged people, and this is, I think, why a lot of why they're not doing conventions.
Oh, they had connectivity issues at that one, didn't they?
Yes, and so what happened was that they were charging people to go in and do this thing, but because a bunch of people showed up to the immediate area,
bandwidth to actually
they had the bandwidth for the people who paid for it. It was all the people who were like, "Fuck you, I'm not paying you," and showed up anyway, and were just outside being like, "All right, cool."
I get that.
And
I
so
mean, that also happened at one of the Seattle Pokemon Go days as well, recently.
Yeah. couldn't get into Point of Violence for several hours because of Pokemon Go. I will tell you, I have so much fun playing Pokemon Go at the Woodland Park Zoo.
Yeah.
There's so many Pokemon.
See, and I don't ever think to get on my phone when I'm at the zoo because I'm already like, I am at the zoo to see animals. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just not a hardcore player for Pokemon Go like a lot of other people.
Yeah. I hope Niantic figures it out. I think that Go was a cool concept from the jump.
It's very cool. You get to see like parents and kids play together.
I play it with my kid, you know.
That is the first video game I've ever seen my mother have any kind of passion for, and she has legitimately hatched every single one of her eggs. And like it's ridiculous. It's like that is her thing. And we as her kids have been able to touch point with her and play that game with her. And we're all avid gamers in our family.
Well, and you brought this up, like, because we talked about this in regards to the Mario movie and Mario Brothers, where Pokemon is has become this multi-generational IP that's really, really getting to that level of cultural, like, thing. Didn't you mention a new Niantic game on a previous stream? We did. We've talked to somebody from Niantic. There is a Marvel Niantic game coming out this summer. We are hoping that they contact us again. And
we're pretty excited about it.
Yes. So I'm hoping that Niantic contacts us again because they gave us some ideas about some stuff that they might want to do at the store.
Yes. Oh yeah, they did try with Harry Potter. I do know that they also have a Monster Hunter one that just came out in April, and it looks pretty decent as well.
Apparently the Monster Hunter one's pretty good. Wizarding World did not work just because the AR function of Wizarding World, like, it just wasn't fun.
I literally did not even check that out.
It just wasn't fun. Like, it just it didn't do well.
Did they shut down support for that?
I don't know if they have or not. It may still be up.
Hold on, chat.
To give you a general idea, Pokemon Go is still sitting somewhere around 5 million active monthly users. I mean, here's the thing. I looked at Niantic's 10Ks, and I mean, I didn't think they were making that much money off of Pokemon Go. They are actually making boatloads off of Pokemon Go.
Oh, they killed Wizard World, the Wizards Unite.
Oh, they shut it down.
They shut it down on January 31st, 2022. Okay, yeah. Oof, that timeline, rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you guys...
It's still a fairly popular game. I know in Japan it's huge.
Yeah.
I know when they enacted the friend mechanic, I started, and people were, because you got rewards for friends and stuff, I would go onto Twitter and people were posting their freaking code.
Yes.
And I have so many friends in Japan.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And we send gifts back and forth.
Oh yeah.
That's how I get more Pokeballs.
And actually somebody in YouTube brought up seeing people playing while they're driving. Like, I do remember watching people, like, just packed full cars of people on their phones slow rolling through they could catch Pokemon.
We had Dead Space during an army training event a few years ago. This was pre-pandemic, and me and the 6 guys I was with may or may not have driven around Yakima, going from raid gym to raid gym and Pokestop to Pokestop for like 2 days because we didn't have anything else to do. It was hilarious. We would pull into parking lots and stop and then walk over to the thing and then get back in the car, go to the next one. It was hilarious.
Yeah, if you guys have anything or any, good anecdotes from Pokemon Go,
drop in the comments.
Just let us know. I do think that, again, they should keep the accessibility and stop rolling those things back, but also I think that would also mean that we would have to embrace a lot of the changes in the world that we're living in today.
Yep.
So, and I do think that is going to be a longer and harder battle than we
It's just going to be, it's going to be a long time before all this gets figured out.
Yes.
Oh, it says here on the internet that you haven't liked or subscribed or hit the notification bell. And that if you don't, the IRS is going to punch you in the dink.